and the chair of the REX, and we have 5 REX. That should be sufficient for, a meeting of maybe 6, 7. Yeah. That should be able to represent Africa. And that is the position I am taking as the president of Kenya.
Is it necessary for 54 leaders to travel to a country to meet one leader? And is it acceptable for the host nation to treat them like kids, stuffing them into buses and transporting them around? African leaders are experiencing disrespect from their former colonial rulers, but surprisingly, no one seems to speak up. Kenya's president, Ruto, had previously criticized European nations for mistreating African leaders. However, this time, he and 53 other African leaders went to meet Italy's prime minister. Why did they tolerate this disrespect again? Let's find out. In our modern world, African leaders are still facing issues that they used to face decades ago from their masters. It's like being caught in a game of tug-of-war between standing tall on the world stage and bending backward to meet the expectations of the old colonial crew. The Italy-Africa Summit 2024, hosted in the ancient city of Rome, has become a spotlight, shining on the tricky actions of power. It shows how some leaders are ready to bend low. Let's face it, the Italy-Africa Summit is no ordinary gathering. It's where the big global shots come together to talk business and make deals. But for African leaders, it's more than just an invitation to the fancy dinner table. It's a test of how much they are willing to flex or fold. You see, it's a tightrope walk for these leaders. On one side, there's the desire to assert themselves, wave their flags proudly, and show the world that Africa is more than just a safari or a stereotype. On the flip side, there's the pressure, the heavy baggage of history and colonial echoes that still whisper in the ears of the continent. The Italy-Africa Summit is like a magnifying glass, exposing the choices made by these leaders. However, the leaders seem to have forgotten their backbone, willingly bending over to catch the crumbs falling from the table of their former colonial masters. It's as if they've forgotten that their primary duty is to their people, not to cozy up with the remains of the colonial era. At what cost, they may gain a few nods and smiles at international gatherings. The consequences of bending too low are clear. It's a slippery slope that can compromise what makes Africa unique. The rich cultures, the diverse landscapes, and the resilient spirit of the people should not be traded for a pat on the back from those who once sought to suppress and control. The Italy-Africa Summit 2024 should serve as a wake-up call. African leaders, it's time to stand tall, not just physically but metaphorically. It's time to say, we are here and we won't compromise our identity for a seat at your table. It's about finding that sweet spot between asserting authority and maintaining dignity. The global stage is not a playground where you mindlessly follow the rules set by others. It's a stage where every nation, big or small, should be treated the same. So, African leaders should remember that their choices echo not only in the marble halls of international summits, but also in the hearts and minds of the people they lead. It's time to choose the path that honors the past, respects the present, and paves the way for a future where Africa's voice is heard and celebrated on its terms. But what went wrong at the summit? Before that, let's rewind a little to see how the African leaders were once reliant and how, in just a call, they ignored the entire continent's diversity. In May 2023, Kenyan President William Ruto, known for his outspoken nature, made a surprising move that puzzled many. He took a strong stand against the mistreatment of African leaders during their visits to Europe, challenging the lack of VIP treatment and questioning the significance of these high-profile engagements beyond mere photo opportunities. Ruto's bold mention of the disrespectful treatment African leaders tolerate turned heads. He vividly described a real incident where leaders, including himself, were herded into buses like school children during Queen Elizabeth II's state funeral in the UK. This surprising move exposed the less glamorous side of diplomatic visits, reflecting the sentiments of many Africans skeptical about the value of such trips. Ruto's declaration of enough is enough wasn't just self-defense. It resonated as an act of solidarity for every African leader facing disrespect on foreign soil. This surprising stance sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles, prompting conversations about the treatment of African leaders during international engagements. However, creeping in the shadows is a contradiction. The same Ruto known for his robust and assertive behavior has now taken a U-turn. Once again, the African leaders went through disrespect, but Ruto happily bore it this time. Is this a new, softer side of Ruto or a strategic move in the diplomatic game? Only time will tell. What's certain is that Ruto's bold stand illuminates the contradictions within political figures.
That we have a meeting between Africa and one other country. We respect the sovereignty of others. I think to ask for reciprocation is not to ask for too much.
Ruto's contradiction is a scene demanding attention, reminding us that leaders, like all of us, possess layers that can surprise even keen observers. As this enigma unfolds, one thing is clear. Ruto has initiated a conversation that may reshape how African leaders are treated globally. While other leaders of Africa also bear the disrespect, Ruto is under criticism because he was the one to criticize. But before we talk about what happened to the leaders this time, let's first see what Ruto demanded the last time. This will help us understand what Ruto compromised on this time. So, what did he ask for initially, and where did he land? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. William Ruto, never one to tiptoe around issues, made it clear. African leaders, duly chosen by their people, deserve a seat at the table with the same respect as their global counterparts. Ruto's call for a shakeup in the power dynamics wasn't just about securing comfy chairs on diplomatic planes, but a plea for dignity. Instead of African leaders constantly clocking air miles to meet their foreign counterparts, he proposed a nouvelle idea: let them come to Africa for a change.
We have made the decision that it is not intelligent for 54 of us to go and sit before one gentleman from another place.
It's a straightforward demand: equal respect for leaders. Ruto's words hit home when he touched on African leaders' struggles at international summits. It's not just about the fancy dinners and photo ops. It's about the challenge of securing individual meetings with foreign counterparts. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, with African leaders often left grappling for FaceTime amid a diplomatic circus. The parallel drawn to how school kids are treated during official visits is both poignant and telling. It's a stark reminder that, despite the titles and fancy titles, African leaders often find themselves relegated to the sidelines, their voices drowned in the bluster of global politics. Imagine a scenario where every leader, regardless of their passport's color, is given the chance to sit down and have a one-on-one chat. It's not just a matter of courtesy, it's a recognition of the agency and autonomy that each leader brings to the table. Ruto's call is a reminder that diplomacy shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all affair. Ruto's proposal is like a breath of fresh air in the often stuffy rooms of international politics. It challenges the status quo and beckons a more balanced, respectful approach to engagements. It's not about pointing fingers or playing the blame game. It's about recognizing that every leader deserves a fair shot at meaningful discussions, irrespective of their geographical coordinates. But what U-turn did he make? William Ruto, who once stood firm against the mistreatment of African leaders on the global stage, seemingly executed a U-turn at the Italy-Africa Summit in 2024. This surprising change has sent shockwaves through Kenya, leaving many scratching their heads and some raising eyebrows in disappointment. For a leader known for his outspoken nature, Ruto's presence at the summit, which he had criticized just months earlier, has ignited criticism and disillusionment among Kenyans who rallied behind his initial stand. It's like a sudden change in the script, leaving the audience bewildered and questioning the consistency of the lead actor. This time, the leaders were again filled in buses and treated the same. Ruto, however, didn't just walk into the room without explanation. He defended his presence at the Italy-Africa Summit with a nod to diplomacy, expressing gratitude to the Italian government for hosting the event. It's a move that invites mixed feelings. On the one hand, acknowledging the host's efforts, and on the other, seemingly diluting the earlier call for a shift in dynamics. The contradiction between Ruto's strong words and subsequent actions has left many wondering if African leaders can stay true to their convictions on the global stage. It's not just about attending a summit. It's about the message it sends to those who support Ruto's initial stance. The kind of plot twist makes you question the plot itself. Ruto's defense may not be enough to silence the critics. The disappointment echoed by Kenyans is a reminder that actions speak louder than words. It's not just about being thankful for the invitation, it's about holding on to the principles that sparked the initial outcry against mistreatment. U-turns are not uncommon in politics, but they come at a cost, a dent in credibility. The Italy-Africa Summit saga prompts us to reflect on the complexities leaders face, juggling diplomatic niceties and the expectations of their constituents. As the dust settles on this apparent contradiction, one can't help but wonder if Ruto's about-face is a strategic move in the larger diplomatic game. Is there a larger play at hand, or did the charm of the summit's spotlight dim the flames of the earlier enthusiasm? Whatever the case, Ruto's Italy-Africa Summit U-turn is a cautionary tale for leaders navigating the unpredictable waters of global diplomacy. It's a reminder that the world is watching. Consistency is the currency that buys trust. As African leaders continue their hop on the international stage, the spotlight will persist, illuminating every step and misstep in the delicate choreography of global politics. But why did he change his narrative? The recent flip-flop by William Ruto sheds light on a more extensive predicament within African leadership. It's a tale as old as time, leaders voicing concerns about mistreatment and exploitation, only for their actions to tell a different story. This inconsistency is more than a solo act. It reflects a broader issue that has disillusioned and disheartened citizens. Ruto's about-face at the Italy-Africa Summit isn't an isolated incident. It's a symptom of a deeper ailment plaguing African leadership. The rhetoric of standing up against mistreatment and exploitation clashes with the reality of attending summits that were criticized just months prior. It's a compromise on integrity that echoes across the continent. The disillusionment among citizens is real. It's not just disappointment in a single leader. It's a collective sigh of frustration at a pattern that seems to repeat itself. The inconsistency between words and actions sends a clear message. Personal gains trump collective interests. African citizens, who yearn for leaders with a relentless commitment to the continent's well-being, are left questioning the authenticity of their representatives. The compromise on integrity erodes the trust that should bind leaders and citizens in a shared vision for a better Africa. The Italy-Africa Summit U-turn by Ruto is a stark reminder that the charm of personal gains can sometimes overshadow the principles leaders claim to uphold. It's a tightrope walk where the weight of personal ambitions threatens to tip the balance, leaving the collective aspirations of the continent hanging in the air. As citizens witness these inconsistencies, the call for transparency and accountability grows louder. The compromise on integrity is a bitter pill for those who had hoped for a different narrative, one where leaders, chosen to steer the ship, prioritize the greater good over individual accolades. It's not just about Ruto, it's about a systemic issue that needs addressing. African leaders must recognize that their actions resonate far beyond diplomatic circles. The compromise on integrity erodes the foundation upon which trust is built, creating a chasm between leaders and the people they serve. The road to rebuilding that trust begins with consistency and a genuine commitment to the collective interests of the continent. As African leaders navigate the complexities of global politics, the spotlight will continue to expose any compromise on integrity. It's a choice they must make. Personal gains or the collective prosperity of a continent yearning for leaders of unwavering integrity. Does this mean the exploitation and mistreatment of Africans will keep on happening? A disheartening pattern persists between African nations and external players, foreign governments, international organizations, or multinational corporations. It's a tale as old as time, where external entities reap the rewards of Africa's abundant resources. While these actors pursue their agendas with gusto, African leaders are caught in a web of conflict, more divided than united. The ongoing tale unfolds like a script stuck on repeat. External exploitation of Africa's resources remains a steadfast reality, an uninvited guest overstaying its welcome. The continent, blessed with diverse riches, becomes a stage where others perform their economic feats, leaving African leaders scrambling to catch up. While external actors strategize and collaborate to advance their interests, African leaders seem to be playing a game of musical chairs, each for themselves, leaving the collective effort space empty. It's a disheartening reality that perpetuates the cycle of exploitation. Africa's resources, be it minerals, agricultural bounty, or technological potential, become a playground for external forces. The dividends flow outward, leaving the continent grappling with a sense of absence and disenchantment. The CLL for unity among African nations against external exploitation echoes through the winds of change. Yet, the response remains muted. The lack of a united front allows external actors to pick and choose, negotiating deals often leaving African nations with the shorter end of the stick. The external exploitation doesn't solely blame external actors, it points fingers at the disarray. African leaders must recognize that a united front is not a luxury, but a necessity. It's the shield that guards against the external forces eager to capitalize on the continent's vulnerabilities. As the world evolves, so must Africa's approach. The call for a coordinated strategy is not just a plea, it's a demand for a shift in the power dynamics. It's an invitation for African leaders to rewrite the narrative, where exploitation becomes a relic of the past, not a recurring theme in the present. The ongoing pattern of external exploitation is a call to action, resonating in every negotiation room and international forum. It's time for African leaders to shed the cloak of division and embrace a unified front. Only then can the continent reclaim its narrative, ensuring that the abundance within its borders becomes a catalyst for prosperity, not an invitation for external exploitation. With the criticism following the Italy-Africa summit, African leaders find themselves at a key juncture, with a series of global engagements on the horizon. The spotlight now shifts to upcoming events like the Turkey-Africa Summit, India-Africa Summit, Russia-Africa Summit, China-Africa Summit, France-Africa Summit, Saudi-Africa Summit, and the US-Africa Summit. The looming question, will African leaders persist in prioritizing attendance at these gatherings, or will they seize the opportunity to flip the script by inviting foreign leaders to Africa? The Italy-Africa Summit fallout serves as a cautionary tale, urging leaders to reevaluate their approach on the international stage. The criticism faced by figures like William Ruto highlights the delicate balance between diplomatic etiquette and standing firm on principles. As these leaders gear up for future engagements, their constituents and the global community's expectations loom. The Turkey-Africa Summit, set to unfold, presents a chance for African leaders to showcase a unified front, learning from past experiences. Will they continue to be mere attendees, or will they grasp the opportunity to extend an invitation, turning the tables on the traditional power dynamics? The India, Russia, and China-Africa Summit follow closely, each offering a unique stage for African leaders to redefine their role in the global narrative. The question isn't just about participation and leveraging these platforms to assert their agency and reshape the conversation. The France-Africa Summit brings with it historical ties and contemporary challenges. Will African leaders seize this occasion to foster collaboration on equal terms, moving away from the shadows of the past? The real test lies in whether African leaders will break free from the routine of being perpetual attendees. The call for a shift in power dynamics isn't just a slogan but a demand for action. It's an invitation to turn these gatherings into a two-way street, where Africa is not just a passive participant, but an active host, shaping the agenda and setting the tone. The future challenges and summits beckon African leaders to transcend the status quo. It's about more than just being present. It's about making a mark that resonates beyond the summit halls. Do you think African leaders should bear this mistreatment? Why is no one speaking up? What will happen to the goal of African empowerment? Let us know in the comments section if this is how the leaders will empower Africa. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Deposit Photos Music.